I arrive at the restaurant an hour before opening, the familiar creak of the back door greeting me like an old friend. The office upstairs is still and quiet, bathed in gray morning light. It smells of yesterday's coffee and the faint scent of my father's cologne that never quite leaves the room. From below comes the distant hum of the kitchen staff preparing for the day, metal pans clanging against stovetops, the gentle murmur of conversation. I drop my laptop bag on the worn leather chair and flick on the ancient desk lamp. The yellow glow spreads across stacks of folders, handwritten notes, and receipts organized in my mother's meticulous but outdated filing system. I've spent the last week going through these papers, preparing for the digital transformation my parents have fought against for years. My laptop screen illuminates the dim office as I boot up the new accounting software. Numbers dance across the monitor, finally making sense of the chaos my family has clung to. 8 years of community college night classes for this moment to drag my family's restaurant into the 21st century before I leave for Seattle. The door swings open with a bang. Sienna stands there, eyebrows raised, her perfect blonde hair pulled into an artful mess that probably took 30 minutes to arrange. She wears her usual management uniform, tailored black pants, crisp white blouse, subtle gold jewelry that catches the light. "I didn't expect you here before me," she says, her voice climbing with surprise. "Mom said you'd be helping out, but I didn't think you'd be so eager." I keep my eyes on the screen, ignoring the slight edge in her voice. "Just trying to be useful before I leave for Seattle. I know the restaurant means everything to the family." Sienna drops her designer purse on the desk, pours herself coffee from the pot I brewed. "Right. Seattle." She takes a sip, watching me over the rim of her mug. "I still can't believe you're leaving us." The way she says it, like I'm abandoning a sacred duty rather than pursuing an education. The world doesn't begin and end at these doors. I mutter, clicking through the accounts payable records. I pause, frown, and scroll back up. Something's not adding up. I click through again, my stomach tightening as I review the numbers. $25,000. A discrepancy of $25,000 scattered across multiple entries over the past 6 months. Too consistent to be a mistake. Too hidden to be an oversight. Sienna. I keep my voice steady. "I'm seeing a $25,000 issue in the books." She sets her mug down, moves behind me to look at the screen. I feel her hand tense on the back of my chair. "It's probably just a small oversight somewhere," she says, waving dismissively. "Don't worry about it." But I notice how her posture stiffens, how her smile seems plastered on. For a moment, neither of us speaks. I glance at her reflection in the darkened window, eyes a little too wide, smile a little too fixed. The memory of last week's rejection burns fresh in my mind. The acceptance letter to the Master of Information Systems program at the University of Washington had arrived that morning. I'd waited until dinner to bring it up, my heart pounding as I explained the financial aid package I'd secured, the scholarship that would cover half the tuition. All I needed was for them to co-sign a $74,000 loan for the remainder, a better interest rate with their established credit. My parents sat across from me at our kitchen table, the same table where we'd celebrated birthdays and holidays for 20 years. My father didn't even look up from his plate. "We need to reinvest in Sienna," he'd said with a dismissive wave of his hand. You don't contribute anything to the restaurant's future." My mother had quickly redirected the conversation. "Speaking of investing, Sienna, tell us more about your proposal for the new patio space." And just like that, I was invisible again. While they fawned over Sienna's latest idea, I sat there calculating the $112,000 they'd spent on her private college education, European trips, and contrasted with my scholarship hustle and community college night classes. The memory fades as Sienna leans over me now, pointing at the screen. "Show me how this new system works. Will I need to learn all of this?" I nod, pushing the financial discrepancy aside for the moment. "I'll walk you through it. It's actually pretty straightforward once you get the hang of it." For the next hour, I demonstrate the payment system, explaining each function while Sienna hovers over my shoulder, watching intently. Her questions are pointed, focused on access and security. "So, who else can get into this system?" she asks, tapping her manicured nail against the keyboard. "Just us for now. I've set up an administrator account with full access. I scribble the password on a sticky note. Here, I'll write it down for you. You'll need it if I'm not around." She takes the note, studies it, then tucks it into her pocket. I notice the subtle twitch in her expression when I navigate through the vendor payment section, a feature she struggles to grasp despite my careful explanation. "You make it look so easy," she says, a thread of resentment weaving through her compliment. My phone buzzes in my pocket. Aunt Lorraine's name lights up the screen. I hesitate, then stand. I need to take this. It's Aunt Lorraine. Sienna rolls her eyes. Dad's rebel sister checking in on her favorite niece? I step into the hallway, close the door behind me. "Hey, Aunt Lorraine." "Riley," her voice warm through the phone. "I've seen your school application. I'm paying your tuition. All of it." My throat tightens. "What? How did you—" "The financial aid office contacted me as your reference. I asked about the status of your application." A pause. "They mentioned the loan situation." Tears well in my eyes. "I can't let you do that. It's $74,000. Some people can't see past their own doorstep, Riley," she says, her voice gentle but firm. "Don't let them limit your horizon. This is an investment in you, and I'm making it." End of discussion. After we hang up, I stand in the hallway, wiping my eyes, a strange mix of gratitude and determination washing over me. I will finish this project properly before leaving. I owe the restaurant that much, even if my family can't see my value. Back in the office, I find Sienna studying the financial records on my laptop. She quickly clicks to another screen when I enter. "I need to grab lunch," I tell her, gathering my purse. "The system is running a data migration. Just leave it open. Only you and I have the password anyway." "Of course." Her smile is too bright too quick. "Take your time." At the door, I pause, glance back at my sister. Something in the air feels charged, dangerous. Sienna sits perfectly still until she thinks I'm not looking. Then her fingers hover over the keyboard, poised like a predator, the instant I turn away. 3 days later, my phone won't stop ringing. The first call comes just after 9 on Wednesday morning. Martin from the produce supplier, his voice tight with controlled frustration. "Riley, we haven't received payment for the last 2 deliveries. Is there a problem?" "That can't be right," I tell him, already logging into the system. "The batch payments went out on Monday. Let me check and call you right back." Before I can hang up, another line blinks. Then another. By 9:30, my desk phone looks like a Christmas tree, every line lit up with vendors demanding answers about missing payments. I pull up the payment dashboard, the knot in my stomach tightening as I navigate to the scheduled transactions. The screen loads, revealing an empty queue where yesterday stood a neat column of vendor payments. $70,000 worth of transactions vanished without a trace. "This isn't possible," I whisper, clicking frantically through menus. I verified every payment myself. I dive into the audit log, scrolling through the activity timeline. My breath catches when I find it a deletion entry timestamped 1:23 p.m. Tuesday, during lunch, when my laptop sat unattended. The user listed: Riley Grant, admin, my account, my login, my responsibility. The office door flies open. Sienna stands there, phone clutched to her chest, face twisted with what appears to be panic. "Mom and Dad are on their way," she says, voice trembling. "The vendors are threatening to cut us off. What did you do?" I didn't do anything. My fingers fly across the keyboard, searching for any backup, any evidence that can prove what happened. Someone deleted the payment queue yesterday while I was at lunch. Sienna's already dialing her phone. "Mom? Dad? You need to get here now. It's worse than we thought." 20 minutes later, the office feels 2 sizes too small. My father paces behind me, his face flushed crimson above his white collar. My mother stands with her arms crossed, eyes cold as she watches me struggle through system recovery attempts. Sienna hovers near them, hands clasped as if in prayer. "The vendors haven't been paid," she explains, voice pitched higher than normal. "They're threatening to cut us off." My father stops pacing. "What exactly happened here?" Before I can answer, Sienna points at me. "It was her. Only she has access to the new payment system. She's the one responsible." "And that's not true," I counter, turning from the computer. "I showed you how to use it. I gave you the password." My mother makes a dismissive sound. "Riley, stop. We can all see the evidence right there on the screen. Your account deleted the payments." I was at lunch when this happened. Someone else used my account. My father slams his hand on the desk, making me flinch. Don't feed us that nonsense. You're a saboteur. The accusation hits like a physical blow. Why would I sabotage something I built myself? That makes no sense. Sienna's eyes glisten with tears. Are you accusing me of trying to ruin the restaurant? Mom and Dad just refused your $74,000 loan last week. Her voice breaks perfectly on cue. You obviously did this deliberately to sabotage the family business as revenge. The phone rings again. My father snatches it, his face darkening further as he listens. Yes, Mr. Daniels. I understand your concern. We value your business. Yes, this is extremely unusual for us. He covers the receiver, glaring at me. Our meat supplier says he'll cut us off if we don't pay by close of business today. I stare at my family, the realization spreading through me like ice water. They believe her. Without question, without investigation, without even considering my side. The shock of it leaves me momentarily speechless. Sienna steps forward, placing a gentle hand on my father's arm as he hangs up. Let me handle the suppliers, she offers, her voice soft and reasonable now. I know Riley was reckless. I'll apologize and make arrangements. My mother nods approvingly. You've always been the responsible one. I forgive you, Sienna tells me, her expression a masterpiece of compassion layered over triumph. But don't you ever do this again. I didn't do anything, I say, my voice barely audible even to myself. My mother turns to Sienna. Revoke her access immediately. All of it. The restaurant staff hover in the doorway, pretending not to watch as the family drama unfolds. I recognize the look in their eyes, the careful neutrality that comes from witnessing something they know they shouldn't. My father takes my arm, his grip uncomfortably tight. Come with me. He marches me through the restaurant, past curious customers and embarrassed staff who suddenly find the floor fascinating. At the front door, my mother waits with a cardboard box containing my purse, jacket, and the framed photo from my desk. We do not tolerate an ungrateful saboteur, she says, her voice icier than I've ever heard it. Not calling the police is an act of mercy you should remember for the rest of your life. The restaurant door closes behind me with a final sounding click. I stand in the parking lot, staring at the family business that just expelled me like a virus. Fat raindrops begin to fall, quickly soaking through my thin blouse. My phone buzzes. Aunt Lorraine. Riley? What's happening? Your mother just sent me the most bizarre text about you sabotaging the restaurant. The story pours out of me in broken sentences, my voice shaking with rage and hurt. When I finish, there's silence on the line for several seconds. Come to Tacoma, she finally says. Stay with me while you study. But they think. Let them think what they want. You know the truth. The rain falls harder as I walk to my car. I place the box carefully on the passenger seat before sliding behind the wheel. Water drips from my hair onto the steering wheel as I grip it, knuckles white with tension. The drive to Aunt Lorraine's home passes in a blur, the betrayal searing into me with each mile. I realize I had been silenced before I could even fight back. My only choice now is to move forward, away from the family that chose Sienna's lies over my truth. 8 years could change everything. For Riley, they did. The University of Washington campus sprawled before her that first autumn day, a maze of red brick buildings and towering pines that had seemed both terrifying and exhilarating. Now, in her memory, it blended with hundreds of other moments, late nights in the computer lab, presentation slides flickering across classroom screens, her professors' nods of approval as she mastered each algorithm and database structure. She remembered the weight of her graduation cap, heavy with promise. Standing in her black gown, diploma case clutched in sweaty palms, she'd searched the crowd until she found Aunt Lorraine's beaming face. Not her parents. Not Sienna. Just the one person who had believed enough to invest $74,000 in her future. Top 5%? Aunt Lorraine had whispered during their celebration dinner later that evening, raising her wine glass. I knew you had it in you. The memory faded as Riley adjusted the picture frame on her home office wall, her degree displayed alongside her first job offer from Bellevue Analytics. That starting salary had seemed impossibly generous then. Now, 8 years later, her worth had more than doubled. Riley smoothed her charcoal pencil skirt and examined her reflection in the window of her Bellevue apartment. At 32, She barely resembled that wounded 24-year-old who fled her family's restaurant with a cardboard box of belongings. Her posture had straightened, her gaze had hardened, her voice had found its authority. Even her clothing had transformed, crisp, tailored blazers and sleek dresses replacing the casual attire of her younger years. Across her dining room table, spread open on her laptop, the employment contract renewal displayed her value in stark numbers: $168,000 annual salary. The figure brought no elation, just quiet satisfaction, a validation that couldn't be denied by anyone, least of all the people who had thrown her away. Rain pattered against the windows of her 15th-floor apartment, the Seattle skyline a watercolor blur beyond the glass. Sunday evenings were her time to prepare for the week ahead, reviewing projects and setting priorities while the rest of the world wound down their weekends. The doorbell's chime shattered her routine. Riley frowned, checking her watch. She wasn't expecting anyone. The building's security should have called up before allowing a visitor. She moved to the intercom panel by her door. "Yes?" No response. Just another ring, more insistent this time. She peered through the peephole, then stumbled back as if struck. Sienna. 8 years older, but unmistakable. Even with rain-matted hair and smudged mascara, the golden child looking decidedly tarnished. Riley's hand froze on the doorknob. Her heart hammered against her ribs, the old wound suddenly fresh. She could pretend to be out. She could call security. Instead, she opened the door. Sienna pushed past her without waiting for invitation, rainwater dripping onto the polished hardwood floor. The contrast between them couldn't have been more striking. Riley in her pressed business casual, Sienna in jeans with frayed hems and a raincoat that had seen better days. "Riley, you have to help," Sienna announced, her voice hoarse but still carrying that familiar note of entitlement. "You're the only one now." Riley closed the door slowly, buying time to compose herself. The sister who had framed her, who had stolen her place in the family, was standing in her living room, tracking mud across her clean floors. "How did you find me?" Riley asked, her voice impressively steady. Sienna waved away the question as irrelevant. "The restaurant is going under. We're drowning in debt, $510,000 worth. The bank is about to foreclose." "And this concerns me how?" Riley folded her arms across her chest. Sienna paced, examining the apartment with poorly disguised envy. "Look, that was all a long time ago," she said, gesturing vaguely as if 8 years of estrangement could be dismissed with a wave of her hand. "We all make mistakes." "Mistakes?" The word tasted bitter. "You deliberately framed me. You destroyed evidence that would have cleared me." "Water under the bridge," Sienna replied, dropping onto Riley's white couch without invitation. "This is about family, Riley. You owe this family. Mom and Dad raised you." Riley stared at her sister, truly seeing her for the first time. The desperation beneath the bravado, the entitlement masking fear. This wasn't a reconciliation attempt. This was a financial rescue mission. "You have a good job," Sienna continued, eyeing the sleek furniture in city view. "You make what, 6 figures? You could help us restructure the debt. You owe us that much." "I owe you nothing." Riley's voice was dangerously soft. "They'll lose everything, Riley. The restaurant, their home. Everything." Sienna leaned forward, a practiced sincerity in her expression. "You have to save the restaurant." For a moment, Riley saw herself agreeing, writing checks, solving problems, being the good daughter she had always tried to be, the dutiful sister who would forgive betrayal for the sake of family. The reliable one who would sacrifice her hard-won security to save people who had never valued her. That moment passed. "Get out of my house." The words came calmly, decisively. Sienna blinked, clearly unprepared for this response. "What?" "Get out of my house," Riley repeated, walking to the door and pulling it open. "Now." "You can't be serious." Sienna rose from the couch, her expression shifting from shock to outrage. "After everything they did for you?" A laugh escaped Riley's throat, sharp and sudden. "That would be nothing." She pointed toward the hallway. "Get out." "This isn't over." Sienna grabbed her purse, her fingers white-knuckled around the strap. "Family is family, Riley. You can't just walk away." "I didn't walk away. I was thrown out. There's a difference." Riley held the door, her stance unyielding. "Don't come back." The door closed with a satisfying click. Riley leaned against it, listening to her sister's footsteps fade down the hallway toward the elevator. Only then did her hands begin to shake. She reached for her phone, scrolling to Aunt Lorraine's number. "They found me," she said when her aunt answered. "All of them?" Aunt Lorraine's voice was alert, concern evident even through the phone. "Just Sienna, so far." Riley moved to the window, watching the street 15 floors below. "The restaurant is in trouble, big trouble. She came looking for money." "And what did you tell her?" "To leave." Riley pressed her forehead against the cool glass. "They're drowning, Aunt Lorraine, and they're looking for someone to pull down with them." "Good girl," her aunt said softly. "You've built a life they can't touch." "I think they'll escalate," Riley said, voicing the suspicion forming in her mind. Sienna wouldn't give up that easily. "Then you prepare," Aunt Lorraine replied. "You set your boundaries and you protect what you've built. You don't owe them a lifeboat." They talked for another hour, reviewing options and scenarios. By the time they hung up, Riley felt steadier, more resolved. She was no longer that vulnerable young woman, desperate for family approval. Exactly 1 week later, Riley's office phone rang. "Miss Grant, there's a situation at reception," her assistant explained hesitantly. "2 people claiming to be your parents. They're insisting it's a family emergency." Riley swiveled her chair toward the floor-to-ceiling windows of her corner office. From this vantage point, she could see the main entrance to the building. Sure enough, her parents stood in the lobby, her father gesticulating wildly at the security guard who blocked their path to the elevators. "Tell them I'm in a meeting and unavailable," Riley instructed, her voice perfectly professional despite the thundering of her heart. "And Jamie, thank you for the warning." She watched, perfectly still, as her father's face reddened with each passing minute. Her mother clutched her purse, mouth moving rapidly, in what Riley knew would be a stream of manipulative pleas. The security guard remained unmoved. Some part of her had been waiting for this moment for 8 years. She had pictured it differently, tearful apologies, perhaps, or at least acknowledgement of the wrong they had done, but this desperate invasion of her workplace told her everything about their intentions. They weren't here for reconciliation, they were here for salvation. Riley reached for her phone again, not taking her eyes off the lobby scene below. She would watch their reaction a little longer before deciding her next move. This time, she would be the one in control. On Wednesday that week, I watched them through the glass walls of my office, arguing with Jessica at reception. My father's face reddens as he gestures emphatically, my mother's hand clutching her purse strap so tightly her knuckles turn white. Jessica's polite smile hardens as she reaches for the phone, but before she can complete the call, they push past her desk. The glass door flies open, hitting the wall with a crack. My colleagues' heads turn in unison, eyes darting between their screens and the unfolding drama. "Riley." My father says my name like an accusation, standing before my desk in the same faded dress shirt he wears to church. "We need to talk." "I don't stand. You could have called." "Would you have answered?" My mother steps forward, her eyes taking in my spacious office, the view of Bellevue through floor-to-ceiling windows, the framed diploma on the wall. "No. I admit," keeping my voice level, "I wouldn't. You make good money." My father jabs his finger toward the glass awards shelf behind me. "Use your money to save the family restaurant." "This is your chance to atone," my mother adds, her voice lowered to what she thinks is a reasonable tone. "For the $70,000 in sabotage you caused." The accusation still burns, 8 years later. I fold my hands on my desk, refusing to clench them into fists. "Is that what this is about? You think I owe you? Pay this $510,000 debt, and we will forgive you." My father delivers this as though offering a generous deal, his chin lifted in expectation of gratitude. Through the glass walls, I see my team leader Mark watching, concern etched across his face. The new analyst, Vanessa, pretends to study her computer screen while straining to hear every word. Let me understand this clearly. I keep my voice steady, professional. You just asked me to take on a $500,000 debt for the people who threw me out over a lie. My father shifts, his certainty flickering for the first time. The bank is seizing the restaurant on next Friday. We'll lose everything. My mother's voice rises, her composed facade cracking. We'll be on the street. You don't understand. My father slams his palm on my desk, scattering pens. We put everything into that restaurant. The house is mortgaged against it. You're our only hope. My mother's mascara begins to smudge at the corners of her eyes. Don't let our family fall apart. Their desperation hangs in the air between us, almost tangible. 8 years ago, I would have caved, desperate for their approval. 8 years ago, I believed family meant something different. I pressed the intercom button on my desk phone. Jessica, please call security to my office. My mother's face collapses. Riley, please. These 2 people are harassing me, I say into the intercom, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hand. They are not my guests. Please escort them out. My father's face drains of color, then floods with rage. After everything we did for you, that would be nothing. I cut him off, echoing the words I'd said to Sienna a week before. 2 security guards appear at my door with remarkable speed. My parents turn to face them, suddenly looking smaller, older. You'll regret this, my mother says as the guards approach. When we're homeless, you'll remember this moment. I say nothing as they're led away, my mother's tearful accusations floating back through the glass walls. My father walks stiffly, his pride the only thing holding him upright. When they're gone, I sit perfectly still, staring at my computer screen without seeing it. My colleagues studiously avoid looking at me. I take one careful breath, then another. Only when I'm certain my voice won't betray me, do I stand and address my team. I apologize for the disruption. Family emergency. The words taste bitter on my tongue. Mark nods, understanding in his eyes. I close my office door, lower the blinds, and allow myself 30 seconds of grief for the family I never truly had. That evening, I sit at my dining table, laptop open, a glass of Cabernet, untouched beside me. The clock reads 11:37 p.m., but sleep feels impossible. Instead, I research. The county website yields a wealth of information about my family's restaurant. Tax liens dating back 3 years, multiple loan defaults filed in the past 18 months. A second mortgage taken out last year at a punishing interest rate. I download each document, save them to a folder labeled Family Business, then create subfolders for each type of financial issue. The methodical organization calms me, transforms emotional wreckage into manageable data points. Next, I research bank foreclosure processes in Washington state. The timeline, the legal requirements, the auction procedures. I look up commercial real estate values in the restaurant's neighborhood, cross-referencing recent sales of similar properties. The building's true market value reveals itself after an hour of research, approximately $750,000, a significant asset, despite my parents' financial mismanagement. I dial Aunt Lorraine, despite the late hour. She answers on the second ring, her voice alert. Everything okay, Riley? I need your opinion on something. I explain my findings, my calculations, the foreclosure auction scheduled for next Friday. A long pause follows. Don't tell me you're thinking what I think you're thinking. They came to my office today, I tell her. Demanded I take on their debt, $510,000. Aunt Lorraine whistles low. And now you're planning what? To buy their restaurant at auction? The building is worth more than the debt. My voice sounds distant even to my own ears. It's just business. Honey, she says, her tone gentle. Revenge might feel good in the moment, but this isn't about revenge, I interrupt. It's about completing the circle. They framed me for financial sabotage. Now I'll use my financial skills legitimately. Another pause. You've thought this through? I'm pre-approved for a commercial loan. The words come out steady, certain. I've been saving for a property investment. This is just appropriate. I won't talk you out of it, she finally says. But I'll be here, whatever happens. Over the next week, I monitor the public records daily. The bank posts the foreclosure notice with the auction date confirmed. I finalize my loan pre-approval, study the commercial real estate market until I can recite appreciation rates in my sleep. The morning of the auction arrives crisp and clear. I dress in my most professional attire, charcoal suit, cream blouse, the pearl earrings Aunt Lorraine gave me for graduation, armor for battle. The county courthouse bustles with activity. Real estate investors in expensive suits cluster in small groups, flipping through property listings. I recognize a local developer, a woman who owns several restaurants downtown. I take a seat in the back row, briefcase beside me, loan confirmation letter tucked inside. The auctioneer explains the terms. Starting bid $510,000 to cover the bank's position. Movement at the entrance catches my attention. My parents slip in, Sienna trailing behind them. They look haggard, defeated before the auction begins. My father's shoulders droop beneath his sport coat. My mother clutches a tissue in one hand. They don't notice me until the auctioneer calls for bidders to register. When I stand and walk to the front, Sienna sees me first. She grabs my mother's arm, points. 3 pairs of eyes lock onto mine, confusion giving way to dawning horror. I write my name on the bidder registration form, accept my paddle number 8, and return to my seat. The weight of their stares follows me across the room, but I don't look back. Some battles require confrontation. Others require calculation. I've learned the difference. The county courthouse smells of furniture, polish, and old paper. I adjust my charcoal blazer, straightening the lapels as I scan the auction room. Investors in business attire cluster near the front, manila folders and tablets clutched in their hands. The auctioneer tests his microphone with a tap that echoes through the high-ceilinged space. I take a seat in the middle row, crossing my legs as I set my leather portfolio on my lap. A movement at the entrance catches my eye. My parents walk in, Sienna trailing behind them. Their expressions cycle from worry to hope to desperation as they huddle in the back corner, whispering urgently. They don't notice me at first. When my father finally spots me, his face freezes, then darkens. He nudges my mother, who turns with wide, shocked eyes. Sienna stares the longest, her perfectly maintained eyebrows rising toward her hairline. I meet her gaze steadily, then deliberately look away, focusing on the auctioneer as he steps to the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attendance today. His voice booms through the speakers. We're here for the foreclosure auction of property located at 1745 Westbrook Avenue. He shuffles papers, puts on reading glasses. The starting bid to recover the bank's position is $510,000. Do I have an opening bid? A balding man in the front row raises his paddle. 515. A woman to my right counters. 525. I wait, letting 3 more bids drive the price up. Then I raise my paddle with deliberate slowness. 530. The room stirs. I feel the weight of my family's stares boring into my back. The auctioneer nods in my direction. 530,000. I have 530. Do I hear 535? The bidding continues, paddles rising and falling like birds in flight. Each time the price climbs, I counter with a calm, measured response. My heartbeat remains steady, my breathing even. This isn't emotion, this is strategy. During a brief pause in the bidding, I feel someone approach. Sienna slides into the seat beside me, her designer perfume cutting through the musty courthouse air. What are you doing? She hisses, her voice a frantic whisper. Her hand grips my arm with surprising force. This is our family legacy. I turn to face her, my expression neutral. It's just business, Sienna. Isn't that what you taught me? Her face pales. For a moment, I see the calculation behind her eyes, the realization of what's happening. She releases my arm and stands abruptly. You can't do this, she says, loud enough for nearby bidders to turn. I smile pleasantly. I believe I am. She rushes back to our parents, gesturing wildly. My mother covers her mouth with her hand. My father's face reddens to a dangerous shade, his fists clenching at his sides. I turn back to the auction, raising my paddle again as the price hits $590,000. The field narrows. Only 2 other bidders remain, the balding man from the front row and a woman in a navy suit. We trade bids in rapid succession. 595, 600, 605. I study them both. The man checks his phone between bids, likely consulting with partners. The woman's hand trembles slightly as she raises her paddle. Neither has my resolve. When the woman bids $605,000, I wait a beat, then raise my paddle. 6, 10. The auctioneer looks around the room. I have $610,000. Going once. The balding man shakes his head. Going twice. The woman in the suit lowers her paddle to her lap. Sold for $610,000. The gavel strikes the podium with a crack that echoes through the room. The sound reverberates in my chest like a second heartbeat. 8 years of waiting, planning, preparing, all for this moment. I move to the front of the room where the bank representative waits with paperwork. As I sign the documents, I feel my family watching. I don't look up. My signature flows across the page with smooth confidence. "Congratulations, Miss Grant," the bank representative says, handing me a copy of the receipt. "We'll complete the transfer of deed once funds clear, which should take 3 to 5 business days." "Thank you." I gather the papers into my portfolio, my movements precise and unhurried. When I finally turn around, my family stands by the exit. My mother's eyes are red-rimmed, my father's face ashen. Sienna stares at me with a mixture of disbelief and fury. I walk past them without a word, but I feel their presence like a physical weight. The hallway stretches before me, sunlight streaming through tall windows at the end. With each step away from them, that weight lifts incrementally. Outside, rain patters on the courthouse steps. I stand under the overhang, taking a deep breath of wet, clean air. My phone buzzes in my pocket. "How did it go?" Aunt Lorraine asks when I answer. "Exactly as planned," I reply. 610,000. "And how do you feel?" I consider the question, searching for some expected emotion. Triumph, vindication, even remorse. What I find instead is something quieter. I feel free. The next morning, I meet with the property attorney I've already retained. She sits across from me in her downtown office, reviewing the purchase documents. "Everything looks in order," she says, tapping at her keyboard. "I'll prepare the eviction notice today. Standard procedure is 30 days for commercial properties." Perfect. I sign where she indicates, my signature growing more confident with each document. "You understand their family," she says, her tone carefully neutral. "We can extend the timeline if you prefer." "No, 30 days is adequate." I hand her the pen. "It's just business." 2 days later, a courier delivers the eviction notice to the restaurant. I don't go myself. This isn't personal, after all. But I imagine Sienna's face as she opens the envelope, the slow collapse of her expression as she reads the requirement to vacate within 30 days. I picture my parents huddled around her, reading over her shoulder, the realization dawning that this is no mistake, no negotiation. By week's end, I've arranged meetings with contractors to assess property improvements. The building has good bones, but years of deferred maintenance have taken their toll. The restaurant's outdated interior needs a complete overhaul to maximize value. Prime location, the first real estate agent tells me as we tour the property after hours. My family is nowhere to be seen. They've been avoiding the restaurant since receiving the notice. Commercial real estate in this area is moving quickly. With the right improvements, we could list at 750, possibly higher. I nod, making notes in my portfolio. And timeline? 3 to 4 months for renovations, then likely a month or 2 on market. Could be faster with the right buyer. The following week, representatives from a regional restaurant chain tour the property. They move through the space with practiced eyes, noting the corner location, the large windows, the spacious kitchen. "We've been looking to expand in this area," their development director says. "Your asking price?" 750,000, I reply without hesitation. After renovations. He nods, making notes on his tablet. "We'd need to see the improvement plans, but we're definitely interested." As I lock up afterward, I stand for a moment in what was once the dining room. Chairs sit upended on tables. The walls, stripped of family photos, reveal faded rectangles where memories once hung. For a brief moment, I remember birthdays celebrated here, holidays, regular Tuesday dinners when we were still just a family. But business is business. I check that the alarm is set, then walk out, pulling the door firmly closed behind me. 6 months later, I signed the final documents with a steady hand, watching as the notary stamps each page with practiced efficiency. The real estate closing statement sits before me, the sale price of $750,000 printed in bold black ink. My attorney slides a calculator across the mahogany conference table. "Let me confirm the numbers," I say, though I've calculated them dozens of times. $750,000 sale price minus my purchase of $610,000 equals $140,000 profit. My attorney nods, his silver hair catching the afternoon light. The bank recovers their $510,000. The remaining surplus $100,000 returns to the original owners. It's standard procedure with auction properties. A smile tugs at my lips. Poetic justice. 6 weeks later, news reaches me through business channels. My former colleague at the tech firm mentions it casually over coffee. Heard about your parents? He says, stirring his espresso. They gave that whole $100,000 to your sister for some fresh start. I take a slow sip of my latte. Did they? Yeah. She sank it all into some high-risk crypto thing. The whole setup collapsed last week, complete wipeout. The information settles over me, neither surprising nor satisfying. 8 years ago, I might have felt vindicated. Today, I feel nothing but a quiet acknowledgement of patterns that never change. In my expanded home office, morning light streams through floor-to-ceiling windows. 3 monitors display my current projects, while on the center screen, a travel website shows black sand beaches under northern lights. I click confirm on my flights to Iceland. My phone rings. Aunt Lorraine's name appears on the screen. All booked? She asks when I answer. Just finished. 2 weeks in Iceland. Starting next month. Perfect timing. I need that break after the hospital's reorganization. I swivel in my chair, looking at the framed diploma on my wall. Sometimes, I can't believe the contrast. While I'm building my career and planning international travel, they gambled away their second chance just like they did their first. The symmetry is something, isn't it? Aunt Lorraine says, they framed you for $70,000 in sabotage you didn't commit. You made $140,000 from their collapse, double the amount. And they lost their $100,000 second chance all on their own. I finish. 1 month later, I stand on a black sand beach in Iceland. Volcanic particles crunch beneath my boots as waves crash against the shore with thunderous power. The vast landscape stretches before us, raw, primal, and indifferent to human concerns. Aunt Lorraine stands beside me, her gray hair whipping in the wind. It's like standing at the edge of the world, I say. She nods, pulling her scarf tighter. How do you feel now, Riley? About everything? I watch the waves retreat, then surge forward again with renewed force. Free, I answer simply. Like, I can finally breathe without their shadows hanging over me. Some people never learn, Aunt Lorraine says, her eyes on the horizon. But you did. The powerful waves crash and recede, each one reshaping the shoreline in subtle ways. I see myself in their persistence changed by opposition, but never destroyed by it. On the flight home, I open my journal. The leather-bound book was Aunt Lorraine's gift when I started graduate school. I write. 8 years ago, they kicked me out for $70,000 in sabotage I didn't commit. 8 years later, I made $140,000 from their collapse. They also got a second chance with $100,000 and they threw it away themselves. The symmetry feels right, not as revenge, but as restoration of balance. The plane lands in Seattle under clear skies. My phone buzzes with an email notification, a new project proposal from a major client. Opportunity, again. I walk through the airport with confident strides, wheeling my carry-on behind me. Near baggage claim, I pause at the sight of a family reunion, elderly parents embracing grown children, grandchildren bouncing with excitement. For a moment, something tugs at my heart, not regret, but acknowledgement of what never was. Then I turn and walk forward, never looking back. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and your own well-being? Sometimes the most painful decisions lead to the greatest growth. What would you have done in Riley's shoes? Share your thoughts below.